Graham and Parker Phillips, thank you guys so much for joining me. The film Rumble Through the Dark is absolutely incredible. I mean, we were just talking about it off screen a little bit, but man, it's raw, but this movie has a lot of heart, like at its core. Can you guys describe to me our main character, Jack, and working with Aaron Eckhart to bring that character to life?
Yeah. Who wants it, Graham? You or me?
You take it, big bro.
Okay. Joe, it's so, first of all, thank you so much for the kind words. Casting the lead role in this, was so integral to being able to pull off this film. And, Graham and I spent a lot of time with our producers kind of banging our heads on the wall trying to figure it out. And, Jack, he's the other side of 50. He's an aged bare knuckle fighter. And to find someone who can really pull that off, both, physically and emotionally, that's tough. Our producer, Cassian Elwes, he lobbed out the name Aaron Eckhart. And I remember exactly where I was driving with my brother on the way to the gym. And Graham just looked at me and said, yes, he's our guy. And, we did what every director does. We sent him the script and hoped. And then a couple months later, he called us and he read it. And, he just got it. He got it on every level. And he felt like he could bring a lot of things that were personal to him to the role, which I think every director, you hope the actor finds something within themselves in the part they want to play. It's obviously a departure from their world, of course, but you want to make it as personal as possible. And Aaron immediately recognized, all that he could bring to it. And the guy's, the hardest worker in the room. He was an absolute pleasure to direct. And every day he was, he's fully in character. If he wasn't on screen, he was, doing push-ups or lifting weights or shadow boxing, and he stayed in it, all 23 days of our shoot. So, we felt really lucky to have him.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely disappears in this role. And that's one of the questions I had for you is what did he bring to the role that wasn't like on the page?
Well, one of the things that was really interesting is when we were talking to him, and he was very open and honest about his process. He's like, if I'm going to be honest with you, there's elements of this role that scare me a bit because I don't really know how I'm going to do this. And the more fantastic actors that you meet, you start hearing these same sort of themes where the best roles that they do are the ones that kind of scare them a bit, that they don't really know how they're going to do it. They don't know how they're going to get to the other side. And so there was an unpredictability of volatility that came with it. When we were talking about like what kind of if Jack Boucher was an animal, what he would be, we kept coming back to this like hungry, like starving coyote. And the volatility that comes with it, where maybe they might not normally go after a certain type of animal, but like they're starving, they might just do it anyways, against all logic. And he brought that volatility in a way that I thought was really, really special. And another element that he brought that I thought was so special and unique was despite, him wearing the years really well, in the history of being a fighter for too long, you still get a sense of the boy that lives in him, which was so important for the heart of the story and his relationship with his foster mother. And I just thought he handled that with so much grace. And it was kudos to him.
I actually want to talk about that for a second, because at the core of this film, it's really a story about the love between a mother and a son. Can you talk about that theme throughout the movie, Parker?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, that's really why I think initially Graham and I were attracted to, the story. When we picked up the book, obviously it excited us, telling the story of a fighter, but it really was the love between, as you said, a mother and a son, no matter how they came to be, that really brought us into it. Graham and I have a great maternal figure in our life. And, we understand how powerful that can be. And then I think, just in general, stories of redemption, just the idea that, everyone, and I think most humans can identify with having regrets in their life, so I think redemption stories bring up, the question of, despite all the regrets you might have, how far are you willing to go if you're given the chance to right those past wrongs? And, that was really important for us, and the casting of that role was really important. And, we're really proud of Amanda Saunders, who totally pulled it off. And those scenes with young Jack are just you're relying on so much of that actor to bring realism to those scenes, especially, as I said, when you're shooting a film quick. And she brought that motherly figure, and it was just one of those things where all you got to do is roll the camera and tell the actors really where to stand, and it makes our jobs a lot easier.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Graham, you said this was shot in 23 days?
Yeah, 23 days.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. Talk to me about what the biggest challenge was that you guys encountered while shooting Rumble Through the Dark.
Well, it's funny. Those 23 days didn't happen consecutively. We got hit with the Delta variant right on day 3, which was a real challenge. I mean, it was hard to keep anyone from getting it at that point, like whether you were in full PPE or whatever. So that was tough. It was like playing roulette. Like, okay, what cast members, what crew, like who do we have to work with today? So that was a logistical mess. And then Hurricane Ida hit, and most of our crew was based in New Orleans. And so just things kept happening. And, logistically, it was just really challenging to piece those 23 days together.
It was kind of like you would have these war meetings at the end of the week, and you'd have to discuss, and I know a lot of films went through it, who do we have next week? And then how do we make the film without, your grip or your best boy or your gaffer? But, it did, as my brother said, it did extend the filming a little bit. But I think one of the funnier stories, Graham, and it's funny now that we got through it, was, we got hit by Hurricane Ida, and Aaron was staying at this house that had a tiny little stream around it. And we didn't really think anything of it. And Aaron's, got a big truck. And anyways, we were scheduled for 2 days of rehearsal for this fight that comes at the end of the film. And right before that day of rehearsal, Hurricane Ida hit, and that little stream that went around Aaron's house went to a giant river. And even him with his big truck couldn't get out. And so he was trying desperately to be able to, come for rehearsal and be able to join us, but he was stuck. And finally we figured out a way to, when it died down a little bit, to bring a big rig in and drag him through the river. And the guy's such a stud. He finally made it to set. And at that point, it was the day we were supposed to start shooting, and we only had 2 hours before we had to start rolling. And luckily, Aaron has a background in jiu-jitsu. And so Graham and I sat there with our director of photography, David Myrick, and our stunt coordinator, David Conk. And David Conk came to Aaron and he said, what can you do? So Aaron talked us through all the jiu-jitsu that he was really comfortable with, given his background. And we just completely rebuilt the fight on the fly to really kind of, serve him and what he was able to do, which is a huge risk. And I don't really recommend it, but, we were lucky because, honestly, it was because of him, his preparation, his bravery, and just, us just all really working together that we were able to come up with something. And, because of that, it became a very improvisational fight. And ultimately, I hope audiences think it works.
That's so crazy. I was literally just about to ask you, for my next question, that all the fights in this, it looks so gritty and real. And I guess that's by no mistake. But I wanted to talk about that because the way that they're shot and presented, they just look like so real and gritty. But can you talk to me about working with the stunt team and stunt choreographer with that? Because now I had no idea that last fight was kind of improv.
Well, one of the things that was wild about the whole thing is Aaron and Derek Russo plays Axe. They were so dedicated that they just really weren't afraid to get dirty. And so, there's a sense of, they're really sweating in there, and they're covered in dirt. At a certain point, the performance and hair and makeup and, the special effects makeup, it all kind of blended into this tornado of just testosterone and intensity. And it just kept building. Thankfully we shot it in consecutive order because it just, it just kept building and getting caked on with the blood and the sweat and the dirt. And, I think that there was a level of, obviously when you're dealing, it wasn't fully improvised because, you have to make sure that no one's getting hurt, but there was because it wasn't as deep in their systems as might be typical for a fight, an 8 or 9 or 10 minute long fight, however long the fight ended up being. There was a sense of hyper vigilance and hyper alertness going on throughout the whole thing that just made it seem like they were just so awake. Like they weren't quite ready to just relax and be totally comfortable with what they were doing. They had to be very precise throughout the whole thing. And I think it gives it a very dangerous feel, which was really exciting.
Absolutely. I actually want to talk about your cinematographer for a second, David Myrick. He captures this film like raw and beautiful. We talked about this a little off screen. It's very gritty, but it has like this dreamlike quality to it. Can you talk to me about working with him as a collaborator and what he brought to the project that only he could add?
Yeah, I think he has a way of, a lot of times, my brother and I, a lot of the scenes we're doing are, emotionally charged, and the scenes that Michael, our writer, wrote are, they're very intimate, and they're the characters that are at a fragile breaking point in their arc. And so to have a cinematographer who's able to put the camera right next to him, who's able to have the actors trust to let the camera breathe as they breathe, and so they can act as one, that's so important, because otherwise, ultimately it's a dance, making a movie, and that person's intruding on the room with these actors, and they're part of the scene. And so I think one of the great things that David Myrick has, apart from just being a technically very skilled cinematographer, is just being able to emotionally be there with the actors. And, for my brother and I, again, when you're shooting a film quick, a lot of times, we're inviting David Myrick to the rehearsal with us so we can all see it. And then ultimately, a lot of these actors like, Bella Thorne or Aaron Eckhart or Marianne Jean-Baptiste, they'll make a decision that's different from the way maybe my brother and I saw it in our original blocking or our original storyboarding. And I think, throughout my brother's, so far short career, we've learned to cast the best actors we can and then trust their instincts. And then it's okay if we have to rewrite it on the fly. And that's something Myrick also is very capable of doing. You prep and you prep and you prep. And then at the end of the day, you're comfortable with it. Sometimes you just got to scrap it all and start over because someone did something brilliant and it's emotionally true. And you just have to follow that, until the end, because at the end of the day, the truth is all you got. So, he really is great as far as that. I think that's the highest compliment I can give him.
Now, talking about working with some of the best actors, Academy Award nominee Marianne Jean-Baptiste is fantastic as Big Mama Sweet. Talk to me a little bit about the character and what she brought to the role that may have surprised you. We'll go with you, Graham.
Gosh, she's just one of my favorite actors that I've ever gotten to work with. I'm also an actor, and I have to say, watching that scene, I was just so jealous anytime that Aaron got to act with her, because she's so good, and she comes from that theater background, and she has this way of sort of in that vein, kind of listening with her blood, and she's just so embodied. And she was such a great antagonist, because she's so principled and she's so in her authority without having to do anything particularly maniacal from the beginning. Like, she's just sitting back and having a beer. Like, she's so, and yet there's this danger, just in the sense that she's like, it's very much like the Godfather of the South. And I just thought she just did such a fantastic job. And she really pulled it off. And she comes across as someone who follows her principles and is just running a business. And there's almost a sadness that she has when she has to do what she's got to do to, and I don't want to give too much away, but to our lead character, like, there's a sympathy, there's a sweetness, a fondness that she has for him. And I just love that there's sort of this bond that they have. It makes it so much more vital, I guess.
Incredible. Now, Parker, question for you. This is your guys' second feature film. The first film was Bygone. What was something that you guys learned from Bygone that you were able to apply to this film, Rumble in the Dark? And then what is something that you learned from Rumble in the Dark that you'll be able to apply throughout your career going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the main thing that Graham and I learned is we really wanted to tell a film where really we got to explore private moments with our characters. And I think that, you can see that, we have a powerful scene that Aaron has in a motel room. It would be his low point in screenwriting terms. We have a great scene with Bella. Bella Thorne plays a character who works for an outlaw carnival that travels the state of Mississippi. And so she's in her trailer alone, and she's with this money that she's discovered. We have this scene with Marianne Jean-Baptiste and Big Mama Sweets, just looking out on this beautiful Mississippi Delta sunset. And she's just quiet for a moment. And it's not necessarily clear what she's doing. Graham and I, our direction for her was you're sitting there and you're deciding where you're going to place the odds for the fight tonight. And this is what you do. Every time you have a fight night, you go to the porch and you smoke your cigar and you watch the sunset and you decide where the odds are going to be. And I think that Graham and I just wanted to create a space where dialogue didn't have to propel the scene, where they could really sit back and relax. And I think, that's something we brought to this film. And I think it's something that I hope, we'll bring for the rest of our careers.
Incredible. Now, Graham, let me ask you, as a director, what messages or emotions do you hope audiences take away with Rumble in the Dark?
That's a great question. I feel like there's a sense of salvation at the end of this film. There's a sense of what the human spirit is capable of to fight for the piece of themselves that is innocent, and to what they'll do to fight for their family. I think it really is a testament more than anything to the tenacity of the human spirit when faced with hardship, when love is on the other side and freedom is on the other side. And I hope that that's what people come away with. And the fact that Aaron Eckhart can fucking fight.
And that dude, I'm telling you, I think this is the best role I've seen him in. He disappears in this role as Jack. But guys, thank you so much for your time. The film is absolutely incredible. If you were to tell me this was your second feature film, directorial film, I would say that you're a liar, because the film is absolutely incredible. You guys are straight up veterans, or at least direct like veterans. So incredible job. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe. You're awesome. Appreciate it.
You guys are amazing. Thank you.